Henry Obikwe was the only son of Chief Damien Obikwe, a powerful Igbo billionaire based in Lagos. Tall, charming, and spoiled by wealth, Henry had never known the meaning of no. He worked a cushy position at his father's tech conglomerate, flaunted designer clothes, and drove exotic cars. But one weekend, his world collided with a different reality. It was his uncle's child dedication ceremony in Owerri, his father's hometown. Henry didn't want to go, but his father insisted. Family is everything. Henry, go and represent us. So, with reluctance, Henry boarded a private car and drove eastward. Owerri was alive that weekend. Drums echoed through the air, women danced in colorful wrappers, and bowls of pepper soup circled the compound. Henry, city-born and restless, tried to enjoy the celebration. Later that evening, a few village boys invited him to a small after-party. They brought palm wine and local gin, ogogoro. Henry, curious and bored, drank more than he should have. Laughter and music echoed under the moonlight. Then he saw her, Amara Nwokaik. She had just turned 19. Cocoa-toned skin, innocent eyes, and a shy smile. She wore a simple yellow gown and came with her cousin, Chioma. Amara had never left Owerri. She'd never spoken to someone like Henry before, but when he approached her, drunk and full of sweet words, something about his charm disarmed her. Chioma whispered, "Be careful, Amara. This one is not our type." But Amara, ever curious, said, "He looks nice." One thing led to another. Under the old mango tree behind the compound, in the thick of night and intoxicated haze, something happened that would change their lives forever. The next morning, Henry was gone. No goodbye, no name exchange, just silence. For Henry, it was a blur. For Amara, it was unforgettable. Welcome to Moonlit Stories, where moonlight meets myth. Love timeless tales? Then hit like, subscribe, and join the circle. Every story begins with you. The sun rose gently over Humiliated, a quiet village on the outskirts of Owerri, casting soft light over the red soil paths and zinc rooftops. Birds chirped in their usual chorus as villagers resumed their daily routines, fetching water, sweeping compounds, and preparing fire for morning meals. But in the Nwokaik compound, things were not as they used to be. For the past week, Amara had been restless. Her hands trembled during chores. She vomited nearly every morning behind the clay kitchen. Her usually bright smile had vanished, replaced by a distant stare. Her mother, Mama Nkechi, noticed the signs but kept quiet first. After all, Amara was her only daughter, gentle, obedient, never troublesome. One evening, after Amara barely touched her plate of yam porridge, Mama Nkechi couldn't hold it anymore. "Amara," she said, her voice low but firm. "What's wrong with you?" Amara blinked rapidly. "Nothing, Mama. I think it's malaria." "Malaria quoi?" Mama Nkechi narrowed her eyes. "Is malaria what's making you spit like a goat and wake up dizzy every morning?" "Tufiakwa." "Amara, tell me the truth now." Amara's hands began to shake. Her lips quivered, but no words came out. The next day, her mother woke up before dawn and went to herbalist to buy pregnancy leaves, just to confirm her suspicions. She returned quietly and watched Amara from the corner of her eye. By nightfall, she snapped. "Amara," she shouted, slamming her hand on the wooden bench. "Who got you pregnant? Speak now before thunder from God will strike you. Or do you want to be dragged to the evil forest where girls with hidden pregnancies are banished?" Amara burst into tears. Her chest heaved as her voice cracked. It was Henry," she whispered. "The rich boy from Lagos. The one who came for Uncle's naming ceremony." Mama Nkechi staggered backward like she'd been slapped. "Henry? Chief Obikwe's son." Amara nodded, sobbing. There was no time to waste. The next morning, holding her daughter's wrist with iron resolve, Mama Nkechi marched straight to the house of Uncle Pascal, Henry's relative in the village. This wasn't going to end quietly, not in Humiliated. Uncle Pascal, a well-respected elder in Humiliated and Chief Obikwe's younger brother, was sitting under his mango tree when he saw Mama Nkechi storming toward his compound with Amara in tow. Her wrapper was tied firmly at the waist, sweat glistening on her forehead. and fury radiating from her eyes. "Pascal!" she barked, ignoring greetings from neighbors. "I need to speak with you. Now." He stood up slowly, concern already forming on his brow. "Mom and Ketchy, what is it? Is Amara all right?" She didn't sit. She didn't blink. "Your brother's son, Henry, has gotten my daughter pregnant." The words hit like thunder. Amara stood beside her mother with swollen eyes, staring at the floor in shame. Uncle Pascal was stunned. "Pregnant? Are you sure?" Mama and Ketchy nodded, voice shaking. "She told me with her own mouth. It happened during the naming ceremony. Your nephew took advantage of her and left the village without a word." He sank into the wooden chair behind him, running a hand over his head. He had hosted Henry like a king just weeks ago, fed him, introduced him to the community, and never suspected he left behind such damage. "This is serious," he muttered. Amara sobbed silently beside her mother, hands shaking. Without hesitation, Uncle Pascal went inside and picked up his phone. He dialed Chief Damien Obeekwe in Lagos. After a brief explanation, there was silence on the other end. Then Chief Obeekwe's deep voice spoke, firm and cold. "Let the girl come to Lagos. Tomorrow. I won't allow my grandchild to grow up in shame. My son must marry her." When they left Uncle Pascal's house, the village was already buzzing. Word had started to spread. Amara Nwokite, the soft-spoken girl, was carrying the seed of Lagos wealth. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. Neither could Mama and Ketchy. Their bags were packed. By dawn, they would leave the red soil of Humiliated behind. The next chapter of Amara's life, one she never imagined, was waiting in Ikoyi, Lagos. But what they didn't know was that Henry had no idea they were coming, and he certainly didn't remember Amara. The gates of Chief Obeekwe's mansion in Ikoyi opened slowly as the black SUV pulled in. Amara clutched her mother's hand tightly, her eyes darting between the sprawling compound and the uniformed guards who stood like statues. She had never seen a house so grand. Marble floors glistening through glass doors, flower beds trimmed to perfection, fountains whispering elegance into the Lagos air. Her feet felt heavy as they stepped out of the car. She wore her best wrapper and blouse, still too plain for a place like this. Mama and Ketchy adjusted her head tie and whispered, "Remember your manners. Do not cry here. God is with you." Inside, Henry Obeekwe walked down the stairs casually, wearing gray joggers and a white t-shirt. He froze at the sight of the two women in the living room. Confused, he glanced at his father. Chief Damien didn't waste time. "Henry, this is Amara, the girl you got pregnant. You are going to marry her." Henry blinked, stunned. "Wait, what? I don't even know her." Chief Obeekwe's voice hardened. "But you did it. You slept with her behind Uncle Pascal's house, under the mango tree. You may not remember, but you must take responsibility. You'll marry her in 2 weeks. That child is my grandchild." Henry's head spun. He stared at Amara, trying to place her face. Something tugged at his memory. Yellow dress, sweet scent, nervous laughter in the moonlight. His shoulders sank. "Oh, God," he muttered. "It's true." He didn't fight it again, but he didn't embrace it either. In the following days, Amara was not welcomed like a bride-to-be. She was placed in the staff quarters, given second-hand clothes, and treated like a scandal. Chief Obeekwe's wife, Madame Stella, saw her as nothing more than a gold digger from the village. Amara cried silently every night, her hand resting on her stomach as her baby grew. Henry avoided her completely, but even in rejection, Amara held her dignity. She prayed. She endured, because deep down, she believed this child was a blessing, not a curse. And the real battle hadn't even begun. 2 weeks passed like a slow storm. Each day in the Obeekwe mansion felt heavier than the last. Amara, once the sunshine of Humiliated village, now moved like a ghost within the mansion walls. She cooked her own food, ate alone, prayed alone. Not once did Henry visit her quarters. Not once did Madame Stella acknowledge her presence. But the wedding had to happen. Chief Obeekwe made sure of it. On a humid Saturday morning, a modest ceremony was arranged in the mansion's back garden. No press, no extended family, just a pastor, a handful of staff as witnesses, and silence. The kind of silence that comes not from peace, but from buried tension. Amara wore a borrowed white gown, slightly oversized and patched at the hem. Her belly barely showed, but her eyes gave everything away: sorrow, confusion, exhaustion. She stood under a small canopy with shaky hands, waiting for the man who was now her husband by force, not love. Henry walked out, dressed in a plain white kaftan and brown slippers. His face was unreadable. He didn't smile. He barely looked at her. If anything, he looked ashamed of the situation, of himself, of what the day represented. Henry Obekwe, take you, Amara Nwokike. His voice was low, almost robotic. When it was Amara's turn, her voice cracked. I do. They exchanged rings. The pastor pronounced them husband and wife. But no cheers followed. No music played. It was like a funeral in disguise. After the brief ceremony, Henry went back to his wing of the mansion. Amara was moved into one of the guest rooms, still treated as an outsider. The staff whispered. Madam Stella barely looked at her. The only comfort Amara had was a Bible under her pillow and the quiet prayer she whispered every night. But one evening, as the sun dipped below the Lekki horizon, Henry saw her again, really saw her. She was in the garden, her wrapper tied loosely over a small bump, eyes closed in silent prayer. And for the first time, he didn't see the mistake. He saw the girl, and he felt something. The next few days passed quietly in the Obekwe mansion, but something had shifted, if only slightly. Henry began to watch Amara from a distance. He noticed how she carried herself with quiet strength, how she never complained despite the cold shoulders and hostile stares. She spent her evenings in the garden, whispering prayers under her breath, her hands always resting gently on her growing belly. Henry felt something unfamiliar stirring inside him, guilt. One evening, just before the house lights dimmed for the night, he walked down the hallway and paused outside Amara's guest room. He raised his hand to knock, then hesitated. But after a deep breath, he tapped the door gently. Amara opened it, her face filled with surprise. She hadn't seen him up close since the wedding. He looked tired but serious. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, Henry said, voice low. Amara blinked. Sorry for everything, for not asking how you were, for not even remembering that night, for treating you like you weren't human. She stared at him, speechless. You don't have to forgive me, he added quickly. I just needed to say it. Amara's lips trembled slightly. You're the first person in this house who's asked how I'm doing. Thank you. She didn't slam the door. She didn't shout. She simply nodded. I forgive you. That moment, that simple exchange, changed everything. It didn't erase the pain, but it softened something between them. That night, for the first time, Henry sat beside her on the edge of her bed. They spoke, not like husband and wife, but like two people trying to understand a storm they'd both been thrown into. They laughed a little, remembered the mango tree, shared how scared they'd both been. But just as that delicate bond was beginning to form, trouble knocked once again, this time in the form of Mrs. Stella Obekwe, and her words would leave fresh wounds behind. The next morning, Amara felt a rare sense of calm. For the first time since her arrival in Lagos, she had slept peacefully. Henry's apology had peeled away a layer of fear that had clung to her like a second skin. She even smiled at herself in the mirror as she tied her wrapper. Maybe, just maybe, things were beginning to change. But that hope was short-lived. Around midday, while Amara was alone in her room folding baby clothes when the staff had quietly gifted her, Mrs. Stella Obekwe stormed in without knocking. The air in the room changed instantly, thick, cold, hostile. Amara stood up quickly. Good afternoon, Ma, she greeted politely. Stella didn't respond. She crossed her arms, her eyes scanning the room like a judge ready to deliver a sentence. So this is how you do it, she said bitterly. You come from your bush village, use a pregnancy to trap my son, and now you think you've entered royalty. Amara's eyes widened, her heart pounding. Ma, I never... Shut up, Stella snapped. Don't act innocent. Girls like you are trained to cry, and look humble until the ring is on your finger. But you fooled only Henry, not me. Amara tried to remain calm. I didn't trap anyone, Ma. I was taken by surprise, just like everyone else. Stella stepped forward, voice rising. Don't play saint. You are nothing but a poor, low-class village girl. You will never be one of us. I will never accept you. When she turned and left, Amara sat back down slowly, trembling. Her throat tightened with unshed tears, but she refused to cry. That night, she vomited again, more from pain than pregnancy. She didn't tell Henry what had happened, but he noticed the sadness in her eyes when he came to check on her. What happened? He asked softly. She hesitated, but finally whispered, Your mom came. She doesn't want me here. Henry's face turned cold. The storm he thought had passed was only just beginning. Henry didn't sleep that night. He sat at the edge of his bed, staring at the floor, replaying Amara's words over and over. Your mom came. She doesn't want me here. The sadness in her voice stung him in a way he hadn't expected. This was no longer about obligation. It was about justice, dignity, humanity. He got up and walked down the long corridor of the mansion. The house was quiet, but his thoughts were loud. He stopped in front of his mother's door and knocked hard. Mrs. Stella Obeekwe opened the door, surprised. Henry? It's late. What is it? You went to Amara's room? He asked, voice calm but stern. She folded her arms. Yes. And what did she do to deserve the way you spoke to her? Stella raised her chin. She manipulated you. I'm your mother. I see things you don't. No, Mum, Henry said, stepping forward. You don't see anything. Amara didn't trap me. I was the one who got drunk. I was the one who acted foolish. And she has carried the shame alone. Mrs. Obeekwe scoffed. So you've fallen for her now, ABI? That girl will bring this family down. You're changing Henry, and not in a good way. Henry's voice dropped, but his words were firm. Maybe I am changing, but I'm also growing. And if you can't respect my wife, then don't speak to her at all. The silence was sharp. Across the hallway, Amara stood near her door, tears gathering in her eyes. She hadn't meant for any of this to happen, but hearing Henry defend her, for the first time, felt like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. Later that night, Henry returned to her room. I'm sorry you had to go through that, he whispered, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. From now on, if anyone treats you badly, tell me. I won't let it happen again. And for the first time since they arrived in Lagos, Amara felt safe. But outside the walls of the mansion, another storm was quietly forming. One named Vanessa, and she wasn't coming in peace. In the glossy world of Lagos elites, Vanessa Ijeoma Okoye was a name that echoed through wine lounges, political dinners, and luxury bridal expos. The only daughter of Senator Okoye, she was born with everything: beauty, wealth, and ambition. And for years, she had her eyes on one prize, Henry Obeekwe. So when news broke that Henry had married a village girl, and not just married her, but got her pregnant first, Vanessa nearly shattered the screen of her iPhone. How dare he, she hissed, pacing her penthouse apartment in Banana Island. After everything me replaced by that? She tried calling Henry. He didn't pick. She sent a text. We need to talk. He never responded. Her pride burned, but her rage burned hotter. Days later, as Amara stepped out of the supermarket near Lekki Phase 1, a sleek black Benz pulled up beside her. Vanessa stepped out, sunglasses perched on her face, lips painted in a harsh red. She eyed Amara from head to toe. So you're the famous Amara, she said coldly. You're even plainer than I imagined. Amara said nothing. She tried to walk past, but Vanessa stepped in her way. I don't know what bush charm you use on Henry, but don't get too comfortable. He'll wake up soon. And when he does, you'll be back in Owerri selling tomatoes. Then, without warning, she gave Amara a light shove. Tell that husband of yours, I said, he still belongs to me. Amara didn't react. She walked back to the car and cried silently the whole ride home. That night, Henry found her curled up in bed, cheeks stained with tears. What happened? He asked, alarmed. Amara hesitated, then whispered, It was a woman named Vanessa. She insulted me, threatened me. Henry's jaw clenched. Without a word, he picked up his phone and called. Vanessa, stay away from my wife. One more insult, and you'll hear from my lawyers. She laughed mockingly. So you've gone soft now? No, Henry replied. I've become a man, and real men protect what matters. Vanessa's smile faded, because for the first time, Henry didn't just say it, he meant it. In the days following the confrontation with Vanessa, a new rhythm began to form in the Obiekwe mansion. Henry started coming home earlier. He no longer avoided Amara at dinner. Sometimes, he even sat with her on the garden bench, asking about life in Humiliated, her childhood, her dreams. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something warmer than obligation, something real. Amara smiled more often. Her pregnancy glow began to shine through the pain. The house staff noticed. Even Madame Stella, though still cold, had stopped her open hostility, at least in front of Henry. One Saturday morning, Henry surprised Amara with something she never expected. Her first prenatal appointment at one of the best private hospitals in Lagos. In the quiet ultrasound room, the doctor turned the screen toward them. Strong heartbeat, he said with a smile. Your baby is healthy, about 3 months. Amara let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. For the first time in weeks, her lips curled into a genuine smile. Henry looked at her, really looked, and felt his chest tighten in a way he couldn't explain. But peace is a fragile thing. That same evening, Chady, Amara's childhood friend in Humiliated, heard the news of her new life. Jealous and bitter, he began spreading rumors. He told anyone who would listen that Amara had planned everything, that she was not as innocent as she looked. She was seeing other men before Henry, he said, lies falling from his tongue like poison. She's not carrying only his child. Back in Lagos, Henry received an anonymous message, a series of doctor photos and a short text. Ask your wife about Chady. She's not who you think she is. That night, Henry walked into the kitchen where Amara was humming softly as she stirred a pot of okra soup. He stood there, eyes clouded with doubt, and asked a question that would shake her to the core. Who is Chady? Amara's wooden spoon dropped into the pot. Amara froze. The steam from the pot curled into the air, but her body turned cold. Her hands trembled as she slowly turned to face Henry. The look in his eyes wasn't anger. It was worse. It was doubt. Chady, she repeated quietly. Yes. Someone sent me pictures, messages. They said you were seeing him before the pregnancy. Tears instantly welled in her eyes. He's lying, she said, her voice shaking. Chady was my childhood friend. He liked me. I never liked him back. He begged my mother to make me marry him after you left the village, but I said no. He's angry, jealous. That's all. Henry looked away, running a hand through his hair. I want to believe you. I do. Amara stepped closer, her voice rising with emotion. You want to believe me? Henry, I've only ever been with one man in my entire life. You. That night under the mango tree was the first and only time I've ever known a man. Her voice cracked. I know I'm not rich or classy. I know I came from a village, but I have never lied to you. I've been insulted, ignored, humiliated, and I stayed because I believed this child was worth everything. Tears spilled freely down her cheeks. If you don't believe me, then there's nothing left for me here. Henry's heart sank. For the first time, he saw it clearly, how much pain she had buried, how much she had endured alone, and how his silence, his hesitation, had hurt her more than any insult ever could. He stepped forward and pulled her into a hug. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't know what to believe, but now I do. I believe you. Amara sobbed against his chest as he held her tightly, a protective arm around her growing belly. From that moment, Henry made a quiet vow in his heart. No more doubt, no more silence. He would fight for her, and he would start by confronting the source of the lies. The next morning, Henry Obiekwe made a decision. Without telling anyone, not even Amara, he packed a small bag, called his driver, and headed east. The journey to Owerri was long and quiet. His mind raced the whole way, but one thought kept him grounded. This time, I need to do the right thing. By late afternoon, they arrived at Humiliated village. The air was different. Earthy, familiar. Children played barefoot in the dust. Traders called out their goods. And somewhere in the distance, someone pounded yam in a mortar. But Henry wasn't here for nostalgia. He was here for answers. He asked around until someone pointed him to a bar under a mango tree near the village square. That's where Chady was, leaning on a bench, drinking cheap palm wine, and boasting loudly to his friends. When Chady saw Henry approach, his smile twisted into a mocking grin. Well, look who finally came back to face the truth, he said, standing. City boy, come to ask about your village wife. Henry didn't waste time. Why are you lying about Amara? Chady shrugged. Because the truth doesn't get attention. Lies do. And people like you, rich, proud, you always fall for them. Henry stepped closer. This is your last warning. One more rumor, one more fake message, and I'll involve the police. You think you're smart, but Lagos isn't Humiliated. I'll make sure you face the law. Chady laughed at first, but when Henry pulled out his phone and showed him a message thread with a lawyer already copied in, the color drained from his face. Please, Chady stuttered. I was just angry. I didn't think it would go this far. Henry leaned in. Stay away from my wife. You had your chance. You lost it. Without another word, he turned and walked away. By nightfall, Henry was back in Lagos. He didn't tell Amara what happened. He simply walked into her room, kissed her on the forehead, and whispered, I handled it. And for the first time in a long while, Amara slept without fear. 2 weeks passed peacefully. The tension that once hung in the Obiekwe mansion like smoke began to clear. Amara felt lighter, her belly rounder now as the baby prepared for its grand arrival. Henry became more involved. He joined her for evening walks, asked questions during doctor visits, and even held her hand in public. Then came the surprise. On a calm Saturday afternoon, Henry called Amara to the backyard. As she stepped outside, her eyes widened in disbelief. The space was decorated with pastel balloons, flowers, and tiny baby-themed ornaments. A private baby shower, just for her. Only a few kind souls from Henry's circle attended. His PA, a couple of trusted family friends, and a midwife. Amara turned to Henry, stunned. Is this for me? He smiled. You deserve more than I can give. But this is a start. Her heart melted. It felt like her life was finally turning around. But peace doesn't last long in stories written with fire. 3 days later, Henry was pulled into a crisis at the office. His father, Chief Damien Obiekwe, had collapsed during a board meeting. The doctors confirmed it was a mild stroke. He would need complete rest and no stress for the foreseeable future. That meant Henry had to step in fully as acting CEO of Obiekwe Technologies. As expected, not everyone was happy, especially Gerald, Henry's cousin. Gerald had long been handling a portion of the company's operations and enjoyed the power. Watching Henry take over ignited a long-suppressed envy. So just like that, he inherits everything? Gerald muttered under his breath in a tense board meeting. Marry one village girl and suddenly he's CEO? He didn't say it aloud, but he was already making calls, aligning with bitter board members, plotting. While Henry tried to hold the company together, Amara stayed home alone, tending to the nursery, unaware that Gerald had made a quiet visit to the mansion and was about to cross a line that would shake everything. The Obiekwe mansion was unusually quiet that afternoon. Most of the staff were out shopping for baby essentials. Henry was at a board meeting in Victoria Island, juggling investors and crisis control. Amara, now in her 3rd trimester, rested in the living room, gently massaging her swollen feet while flipping through a baby name book. The bell rang unexpectedly. The housekeeper answered and announced, Madam, your husband's cousin, Mr. Gerald, is here. He said he came to check on you. Amara hesitated but nodded. Let him in. Gerald strolled in, dressed in a fitted white senator outfit and leather slippers. He wore his usual fake smile, the one that never quite reached his eyes. Ah, Amara, he said, looking around. Still glowing, I see. Village life suits you here. She offered a polite smile. "Good afternoon, Gerald." He sat without invitation and crossed his legs. "You know, when I first heard Henry was marrying you, I was angry. But now, I see you're not just beautiful. You're strong, fierce, even, and that's attractive." Amara's smile disappeared. "I'm not comfortable with this conversation." Gerald leaned forward. "Why settle for Henry? A man barely holding the company together. I could give you more luxury, real attention, all this mansion power. It could be yours with me." Amara stood immediately. "You're mad. Leave now." He chuckled darkly. "Careful, Amara. One lie from me, and you'll be sent back to a wary in disgrace. Think about it." She was trembling as he left, smirking. Later that evening, when Henry returned and found her pale and shaken, she told him everything. Every word Gerald said. Henry's eyes turned to fire. He picked up his phone and called Gerald immediately. "If you ever come near my wife again, I will destroy you. Try me." But Gerald only laughed. This is just the beginning. The next morning, things began to unravel fast. Company funds went missing. Fake documents surfaced. Anonymous reports of fraud leaked to the media. Whispers began. Henry's not ready. His wife's a bad omen. And as pressure mounted, Henry realized this wasn't just family drama. It was war. Obequi Technologies was in chaos. The police arrived at the mansion with a search warrant. Whispers of fraud, embezzlement, and corruption filled news headlines. Staff whispered. The board panicked. Investors began to pull out. Henry kept calm on the outside, but inside, his world was breaking. And it wasn't just him. At home, Amara collapsed after a distressing phone call. The doctor later explained it was stress-induced hypertension. "She's almost due," he said. "Any more pressure, and you may lose both her and the baby." Henry stayed by her side that night, watching her sleep. When she stirred and saw him holding her hand, she whispered, "This isn't your fault." He looked away, ashamed. "It is. I brought you into this mess." Amara placed her hand on his cheek. "We'll fight it. Together." Meanwhile, Gerald and Vanessa were meeting in secret. Their alliance had gone dark and deadly. Vanessa had paid journalists to circulate fake stories. Henry married a former village prostitute. Gerald bribed insiders to plant fake evidence of fraud. But the house of lies began to collapse. Henry's investigators traced the fake documents back to Gerald. Screenshots of Vanessa's payments to journalists surfaced. Chief Damien, now recovering, called a final emergency board meeting. At the meeting, he stood slowly and said, "I may be old, but I'm not blind." He turned to Gerald and Vanessa. "You tried to destroy my son. You tried to destroy our legacy." He fired Gerald on the spot. Vanessa's father, Senator Okoye, was disgraced. The family lost their political clout. 1 month later, Amara gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Chidibir. God is merciful. As Henry held his son, tears fell from his eyes. He turned to Amara, voice breaking. "Thank you for staying, for believing, for forgiving." They held each other tightly, surrounded by the pain they had survived and the love that now stood stronger. Months passed. Peace returned. Even Madame Stella, once a bitter storm, came to Amara in the garden and whispered, "I was wrong. I'm sorry." Amara smiled softly. "I forgave you a long time ago." And under the warm Lego sun, they renewed their vows, this time not out of duty, but from a love tested by fire and made stronger by grace. Love had won. And so, in the heart of Lagos, amid whispers of scandal and the shadows of wealth, a new kind of love was quietly born. Not the kind with fireworks and fancy proposals, but the kind that grows through pain, through tears, through truth. Amara never planned to be here. Not in this house. Not with this man. But maybe destiny doesn't need permission. And Henry, he had spent his life in the spotlight, admired but never understood, until he saw her, until he finally chose to protect something that wasn't status, but heart. And while Mrs. Stella Obequi wrestled with a pride too heavy to lay down, the truth had already moved into the house. Not loud, not dramatic, just present and ready to grow. Not all love stories begin with, I love you. Some begin with, I'm sorry. And sometimes that's enough. If this story moved you, if you saw a bit of yourself in Amara or maybe in Henry, drop your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what part hit you the hardest. Have you ever been misjudged like Amara? Or had a fight for someone the world didn't believe in? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss another story like this one. Because here on Moonlit Stories, we don't just tell stories, we tell truths. And the next one might just be yours.